Good morning. We continue this week with our study of Galatians. We've been in this letter for a while. Last week we were looking at the Trinity, seeing how important the Trinity is to this message of salvation that Paul is bringing to the Galatians. This week we're looking at the profound implications of freedom. We have established that Galatians is a letter written by the Apostle Paul to this group of churches that Paul has planted in what's modern-day Turkey, and that Paul is mad. He's in a fighting mood. He is taking this group of people behind the tool shed. The issue is salvation by grace alone. Paul is mad because he thinks they should know better. He brought them a message. He brought them the good news. He brought them the gospel. But after he and Barnabas left town, they fell under the influence of this group that said they had a slightly improved message, and it turned out to be a radically different message. Paul's message was that faith equals salvation plus works. Their message was faith plus works equals salvation. And Paul said, this isn't a minor tweak. This is a radically, fundamentally different message. And so he comes out, he's very mad. The language in the letter to the Galatians is harsh. Today it's a little bit harsher. And the text, the prose, the content is dense, and today that's particularly true. I'm reading in chapter 5, Galatians. Chapter 5, verse 1. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. So Paul is telling us that we are free. He's not telling us to fight for our freedom. He's telling us that we are free. So the obvious question is, free from what? Now, if we look at other parts of the Bible, we might come away saying, well, we're free from guilt, or we're free from fear. And those are, in fact, themes that we would find other places. But that's not what Paul is writing about right now. Paul is saying, in particular, that we should be free from the worry about earning God's love and our way forward. We should be free from the hassles that come from the law. So he goes on and he says, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. So then he immediately proceeds to pivot and suggest that is a freedom that we can lose. Stand firm then, and do not let yourself be burdened again by the yoke of slavery. Do not let yourself lose that freedom. So a yoke was a wooden harness used most typically with oxen to pull a plow or a cart. And in the Old Testament, this yoke is also sort of symbolic of the whole idea of slavery or bondage. And so Christ's promise is that when we get yoked to him, our burden is very light. So please note, again, the word again that is used here. It's for freedom that Christ has set you free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourself be burdened again by the yoke of slavery. So discussions about slavery for the Americans, we think back to American slavery, right? The black-only slavery that led to the Civil War and all of that. So likewise, talk about slavery to a Jew would have led them to think about when they were in slavery, which is back in Egypt. And God had through the Exodus, God had removed them from that slavery, but they kept falling back into slavery. The metaphor gets used a lot of different ways. They kept falling back into slavery because they were not keeping the law. Now, it's actually the opposite. They're trying to fulfill the law. So here's the thing. Paul is not writing to Jews. He's writing to Gentiles. And so the Gentiles are going to have a very different understanding of slavery. And the reality is, their slavery would be to whatever small g gods they were trying to please. If they were fishermen, it's probably the gods of the sea. If they were, if they were soldiers, it's probably the gods of war. So they were trying to appease some god. They were trying to work the system so that they would actually flourish. And Paul is writing to them and saying, no, don't go back to that. Don't think that it is faith plus works equals salvation. Understand the good news of the gospel, that God is reaching down. We are saved by grace through faith, not of ourselves. So, more on this tomorrow. Have a good day.